Yo, what's good, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, where we're diving deep into the trial that's got the world buzzing. Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking and racketeering case. If you thought you'd heard it all since this saga exploded last year, think again. We've got fresh, jaw-dropping updates from the Manhattan courtroom, new evidence, wild testimony, and a trial that's speeding toward a verdict. With closing arguments just days away, will Diddy face life in prison? Or will his defense pull off a miracle? Buckle up for 30 minutes of exclusive insights you need to hear. Let's go. It's June 23, 2025, and we're in the final stretch of one of the most high-profile trials in recent history. Sean Diddy Combs, the hip-hop mogul who built Bad Boy Records and shaped pop culture, is fighting for his freedom. He's facing 5 serious charges: 2 counts of sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, and 2 counts of transportation for prostitution. If convicted on the sex trafficking counts alone, he's looking at a mandatory 15 years in prison, potentially life. That's no small thing for a 55-year-old icon. Diddy's pleaded not guilty, insisting all sexual encounters were consensual. But prosecutors, they're painting a dark picture of coercion, drugs, and what they call freak-offs, marathon sex parties allegedly fueled by violence and control. This trial's been a roller coaster since it kicked off last month, and with the prosecution wrapping up Monday, we're days away from closing arguments. By next week, potentially July 3rd, a jury could decide Diddy's fate. So, what's new? Let's dive into the latest bombshells that have the courtroom buzzing. Last week, prosecutors dropped a bombshell, unveiling photos from the March 2024 raid on Diddy's Holmby Hills mansion in LA. Jurors were shown hundreds of bottles of baby oil, lined up like a display case at Costco, along with boxes of lubricant, high-powered rifles, body armor, and bags of ketamine. Yeah, you heard that right, baby oil in bulk. The defense, led by Mark Agnifilo, tried to downplay it, saying Diddy just buys in bulk like any other American. But prosecutors argue this was part of the setup for those alleged freak-offs, where Diddy's team stocked hotel rooms with supplies like lube, condoms, and red-hued lights for days-long sex parties. These photos weren't just for shock value. They tie into the prosecution's case that Diddy ran a criminal enterprise, using his employees to arrange travel, drugs, and escorts for these events. One juror reportedly looked away during the evidence display. Clearly, this stuff is intense. And it's not just physical evidence. Texts between a male escort named Jules and a Diddy associate from 2009 were introduced, showing detailed travel arrangements for a party, a euphemism for these alleged freak-offs. Jules even asked for a fake text to cover his tracks with his girlfriend. Shady, right? Now let's talk about the star witness of the week. Brendan Paul, a former Syracuse basketball player turned Diddy's personal assistant. Testifying under immunity, Paul dropped some wild details about life in Diddy's world. When he was hired in 2022, he was told to break up with his girlfriend and prepare to never see his family because the job was that demanding. Diddy himself told Paul he doesn't take no for an answer and wanted his team moving like SEAL Team 6, you know, the elite Navy SEAL unit. Paul said he worked 80 to 100 hours a week, sometimes going 3 days without sleep, relying on cocaine and Adderall to stay awake. Paul's role? Procuring drugs for Diddy, including a pound of marijuana every month or two and a pink-dyed mix of ketamine and Molly called 2C, apparently for the aesthetic. He also set up hotel rooms for what he called Wild King nights, stocking them with baby oil, Astroglide, and those red lights. Jurors saw bills for damages: $1,200 for oil-soaked sheets, $1,800 for a stained carpet. But here's where it gets tricky. On cross-examination, Paul admitted he never saw Jane, one of the alleged victims, act hesitant about these events, bolstering the defense's claim that everything was consensual. Oh, and let's not forget, Paul was arrested in March 2024 on a private plane with Diddy and his chief of staff, Christina Courtroom, with cocaine in a Goyard bag. Paul initially said it wasn't his, claiming it was Diddy's, but out of loyalty, he didn't snitch at first. Those charges were later dropped in a diversion program, and now he's spilling the tea under immunity. This testimony is huge for the prosecution's racketeering charge, showing Diddy's team allegedly facilitated drugs and sex trafficking. But the defense? They're arguing it was just personal use, not a criminal enterprise. This trial hasn't been without its chaos. A juror almost got kicked off after talking about the case outside court. Big no-no. The judge was pissed, accusing someone from the prosecution or defense of leaking details from a sealed session. That juror stayed, but another was dismissed earlier for lying about where they lived, New York or New Jersey. Why does that matter? Only New Yorkers can serve on this jury, and the defense cried foul, saying swapping a black juror for a white alternate could skew the jury's diversity. Drama on drama. Here's the big news. The prosecution rests Monday after their final witness, a Homeland Security agent, shows money transfers, hotel invoices, and travel records for 45 male escorts between 2021 and 2024. The defense? They're only planning a 1 or 2 day case, starting Tuesday, wrapping by Wednesday. That means closing arguments could hit Thursday, and the jury might start deliberating by Friday or Monday, July 7th at the latest. Diddy's not expected to testify. His lawyer, Mark Agnifilo, seems confident the government's case has holes. But will it be enough? So what's the defense cooking up? They're not denying the freak-offs happened or that Diddy was abusive in relationships. Instead, they're doubling down on consent. They've shown sexually explicit texts from alleged victims Cassie and Jane, suggesting they willingly participated to make Diddy happy, even after alleged abuse. The defense is banking on convincing just one juror that there was no coercion, which could tank the sex trafficking charges. Remember, the jury needs to be unanimous to convict. But the prosecution's got a secret weapon. Dr. Dawn Hughes, a forensic psychologist who testified about trauma bonds. She explained how victims of abuse can stay in toxic relationships, making it hard to leave even after violence. This directly challenges the defense's "they consented" argument. Cassie and Jane testified about beatings, threats to cut off financial support, and Diddy allegedly threatening to leak explicit videos. The defense is expected to call their own expert to counter this, arguing Cassie and Jane aren't true victims. It's a battle of the experts, and it's going to be intense. One mystery remains. Where's Gina, the third alleged victim? Prosecutors say they couldn't locate her, and she's not listed as a victim in the sex trafficking charges, so the defense is ready to pounce, arguing her absence creates reasonable doubt. If she's not testifying, can the jury fully buy the prosecution's story? The defense also denies claims from a civil lawsuit by Rodney "Lil Rod" Jones, who called Brendan Paul a drug mule. Paul pushed back, saying he only bought small amounts for Diddy's personal use, not kilos for a cartel. This trial isn't just about Diddy's freedom, it's about his legacy. The man who brought us Biggie, Bad Boy, and hip-hop's golden era could be defined by these allegations. Prosecutors say he ran a criminal enterprise for nearly 2 decades, using drugs, violence, and coercion. The defense says it's all exaggerated. Diddy's just a music mogul with a wild lifestyle, not a criminal mastermind. With only 2 predicate acts needed for the RICO charge, like drug distribution or bribery, the prosecution's feeling confident. But the defense only needs one juror to doubt. As we head toward closing arguments, the stakes couldn't be higher. Will the jury see Diddy as a predator who coerced women into freak-offs, or a celebrity whose relationships were messy but consensual? The evidence, baby oil, drugs, texts, and travel records, paints a vivid picture, but it's up to 12 jurors to decide. Could we see a verdict by July 3rd? And what about Gina's absence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Diddy's guilty, or is the prosecution overreaching? Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for daily trial updates. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Diddy trial's latest twists. We'll be back with more as this saga unfolds. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next one.